and welcome. I'm Sally Jensen, and here's what happened this week. Anger is mounting in Taiwan after lawmakers voted not to reconsider controversial amendments that greatly expand the power of the legislature. The ruling party, which opposed the changes, is now weighing up its next steps. Louise Watt reports.
Afraid for their country's democracy, protesters in Taipei rally outside the legislature, angry over a vote expanding lawmakers' powers.
我很担心台湾会变成第二个香港，对，所以这是这3天我们都会在这里的原因，不单单只是国会扩选这么简单，因为我觉得它就是卖台的起手式，这只是它的第一步而已。
Pushed through by the opposition, the amendments give lawmakers powers to summon people to provide information, including the president, under threat of fines and prison. The discussion has sparked physical fights in the legislature and brought tens of thousands of people out onto the streets in protest. President Ching-te's Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, opposes the reforms, but with a minority in the legislature, it has been powerless to stop them. The DPP says the opposition rushed through the changes without proper debate and asked that there be a review. But in a vote, the legislature refused that request. A popular move with supporters of the opposition, who gathered outside the legislature. They feel the reforms will allow for better government oversight and help combat corruption.
希望国家能够改革，能够在野党监督执政党。
所有的改革方案都是为了对老百姓有帮助的，所以我们会支持。
Political observers say the government is worried that opposition lawmakers led by the Kuomintang or KMT will use these new powers to score political points.
It's become a very partisan issue, but part of it will also be investigating legitimate questions of how the government executed its powers, how it spent taxpayer money, and this kind of attempt to bring some sunshine to the operation of the executive branch, I think that is a very legitimate thing for a legislative branch to seek to do.
Lai, who's just starting a 4-year term, already faces pressing challenges dealing with China, which wants to take control of Taiwan. Now he has to wrestle with internal difficulties too. His party saying the new reforms upset the balance of power between the different branches of government. But the fight isn't over. President Lai's party argues the reforms are unconstitutional. They've said their next step is challenging them in court, showing how it's anything but a smooth ride ahead for President Lai and Taiwan's political system. Patrick Chen and Louise Watt in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's president laid out new national policy plans and said he'd lead task forces to tackle 3 global challenges. Joyce Zeng tells us more.
A month into the role, Taiwan's new president, Ching-te, has launched 3 special councils, which Lai will preside over himself, that focus on national defense, healthcare, and climate change, all to equip Taiwan to face what Lai calls global challenges. He says that climate change is humanity's biggest obstacle and has reaffirmed Taiwan's commitment to net zero emissions by 2050. On defense, Lai spoke about protecting people in Taiwan against natural disasters and cybercrime in addition to military threats. Addressing Beijing's growing threat to invade Taiwan, Lai says he will only keep strengthening Taiwan's self-defense, including by ramping up civil preparedness, which will be a key focus of the new Defense Council.
台湾人民热爱和平，与人为善，但和平必须要靠实力，也就是透过备战来达到避战，而达到和平。空口白话不是真和平，靠实力达到了和平，才有保障，才是真正的和平。
Now it's been a busy month for Lai and his vice president, Bi-khim Hsiao. Taiwan has seen Chinese military drills around the country in direct response to Lai's inauguration. And within its borders, the passing of a contested legislative bill has sparked widespread protests and prompted the cabinet to override it by forcing a revote. Here, Lai has set a tone of openness, taking questions from the media to address these issues, something that his predecessor, Tsai Ing-wen, rarely did during her 2 terms in office. And it's this open dialogue that Lai hopes will be central to the newly announced councils. They will begin meeting quarterly and include reps across the government, industry, and academia, all to provide the resources needed to ensure a safe and prosperous future for Taiwan. Patrick Chen and Joyce Zhen in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
American tech giants Nvidia, Microsoft, and Apple are in a 3-horse race to be the world's most valuable company. Chipmaker Nvidia's stock market value surpassed $3.3 trillion on Tuesday, overtaking Microsoft for the top spot. It came just days after it overtook Apple as the second most valuable company. Its share prices then slipped on Thursday, handing the title back to Microsoft. The 3 companies are racing to build out their AI capabilities. Nvidia plans to set up its first Asia-based R&D center in Taiwan. Russian President Vladimir Putin signed security deals with both Hanoi and Pyongyang during a whirlwind trip to bolster ties in Asia, prompting Seoul to respond with a drastic new measure. Rosie Greninger reports.
With a handshake, Russian President Vladimir Putin seals a deal to bolster defence ties with his Vietnamese counterpart Tu Lam while on a visit to Hanoi. Vietnam was Putin's second stop in a whirlwind trip to Asia, seen as a show of defiance to the West, who have attempted to isolate the Russian leader amid his country's war in Ukraine. While in Hanoi, the Russian president spoke out against the NATO military alliance, saying it's a danger to Asia.
Мы видим, что в Азии происходит, правда? Блоковая система сколачивается в Азии. Уже НАТО туда переезжает, как на постоянное место жительства. И это, конечно, создает угрозы для всех стран региона, в том числе и для Российской Федерации. Но мы на это обязаны реагировать и будем это делать. Вам большое спасибо. Всего самого хорошего.
Putin's comments come after countries like Japan, South Korea, Australia and New Zealand received security information from the alliance in the face of a growing threat from China. While in Vietnam, the Russian leader also signed several agreements for energy and education and agreed to boost cooperation in security and defence. Vietnamese President Tu Lam said these deals would contribute to peace and security in the region.
Việt Nam nhất quán coi Liên bang Nga là một trong những đối tác quan trọng hàng đầu, mong muốn cùng Nga phát triển mối quan hệ hữu nghị truyền thống lâu đời và hợp tác tốt đẹp giữa các thế hệ lãnh đạo và nhân dân hai nước.
Before Vietnam, the Russian president was welcomed to North Korea with pomp and ceremony on his first visit to the pariah state in more than 2 decades. The landmark meeting with leader Kim Jong-un saw the 2 countries sign a comprehensive strategic partnership, strengthening military and economic cooperation. This includes providing immediate military assistance if either state faced armed aggression. The US criticised the deal, while South Korea said any help to strengthen Pyongyang's military is a violation of the UN Security Council resolutions. Seoul also slapped additional sanctions on Moscow and has reopened discussions about aiding Ukraine in the conflict with Russia.
그리고 우크라이나에 대한 무기 지원 문제는 재검토할 예정입니다.
Putin says that if South Korea does take that step, it would be a, quote, big mistake, and threatened Russia would respond. But as he returns to Moscow with 2 new deals under his belt, the Russian president is confident he's found new partners in the face of tough Western sanctions due to the war in Ukraine. Dolphine Chen and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
China faced 2 bouts of extreme weather, record-breaking heat in the north and widespread flooding in the south. Harel Hughes has more.
Farmer Leo walks through her orchard, surveying the damage. She estimates 90% of her crops are now ruined after weeks of drought and soaring temperatures across northern China.
就是我从大记事就没大，就是我小时候记事时候那是60几年，那个干旱从大那没说是跟今年什么旱，那个都下过雨，春天里都下过1次2次的雨，只今年就是1次没下。
Leo is not alone. Across the region, farmers are waiting for rain as the soil becomes cracked and their fields desolate. Meanwhile, in southern China, it's the other extreme. Days of torrential rain and landslides have flooded cities, forcing thousands from their homes and killing at least a dozen people. The country is dealing with 2 extreme weather patterns simultaneously. It's a pattern now seen across Asia.
We identified that in the tropical Indo-Pacific, there are some critical changes in weather patterns, synoptic weather patterns, meaning relatively larger scale weather patterns, and these are aggravating weather extremes in the region, and in particular they are aggravating heat waves as well as extreme precipitation.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has called for an all-out response to the extreme weather gripping the country. But as the effects of climate change get worse, it's a pattern that's expected to continue moving forward. And Farmer Leo's trees may not bear fruit anytime soon. Alex Chen and Harel Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
The Thai parliament passed a bill legalizing same-sex marriage, making Thailand the first Southeast Asian nation to recognize marriage equality. Rosie Greninger has more.
Celebrations erupt in Bangkok's Senate after lawmakers passed a bill to legalise same-sex marriage in Thailand. The landmark decision paves the way for Thailand to become the first Southeast Asian country to recognise equal marriage rights, and the third country in Asia after Taiwan and Nepal. After living without access to the basic rights and security that heterosexual couples enjoy, lesbian couple Vorowan and Anticha say this is a day-long overdue.
ถ้ามันมีกฎหมายเนี้ยการได้จรดปากกาลงไปในใบที่แสดงว่าเราสามารถดูแลกันและกันได้อะมันอาจจะทำให้ชีวิตของเรารู้สึกมั่นคงปลอดภัยมากยิ่งขึ้นและนั่นคือสิ่งที่เราไม่เคยมีมาก่อนเลย
The bill passed the upper house in a landslide after the lower house previously cleared the bill in a near-unanimous vote. The new laws will give same-sex couples in Thailand rights on adoption, inheritance and tax allowances. References to men, women, husbands and wives will also be changed to gender-neutral terms. The bill had overwhelming public support, but some activists have criticised the new laws for failing to recognise transgender people and people with non-binary gender identities. Speaking at Bangkok's Pride Parade earlier this month, the country's Prime Minister was already confident the bill would pass.
เดือนแห่งการเฉลิมฉลองสิทธิเสรีภาพของความเสมอภาคเท่าเทียมสิทธิเสรีภาพในการที่จะมีโอกาสได้เลือกนะครับก็ถือว่าเดือนมิถุนายนนี้เราจะมีการเฉลิมฉลองครั้งใหญ่ทั้งเดือนนะครับวันนี้ก็ถือว่าเป็นการจุดเริ่มต้นที่ดีใน
The Prime Minister is set to open his official residence to the LGBTQ+ community and supporters to celebrate, before a parade marches from Government House to Bangkok's central business district. The legislation will now be sent to the Cabinet for approval before it goes to the King for royal assent, something that's seen as a mere formality. The new laws will come into force 120 days after publication in the official Royal Gazette, and activists hope the first same-sex weddings can be celebrated as early as October. And Teacher and Vorowan say they will tie the knot as soon as possible.
พอกฎหมายออกเราก็จะไปจดทะเบียนกันค่ะเพราะว่าเราก็รอคอยมานานเนาะว่าเวลาที่ได้รับการรับรองหรือว่าการมองเห็นอย่างเป็นทางการนะมันมีพลังนะ
As well as being a landmark in equal rights legislation, many people believe the decision will drive up the economy, with many same-sex couples set to wed. The move could also attract more LGBTQ people to the country, and Thai activists hope it will encourage other countries in the region to follow their lead. Alex Chen and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching Here's What Happened. Finally, take a sneak peek of these performing arts groups that are heading to several European festivals this summer. I'm Sally Jensen. Take care and see you next week.